I think people don't understand the massive change that's undergoing all of the time. Particularly right now, we're living through very big changes with how information is actually being distributed and as well as processed. Those two things are really, really important. And the culture that we have is really stuck on super. So for many years, right, 100 years ago, or older, probably about 150 years ago, is that most of the information that was distributed was largely word of mouth. There would be a little bit of distribution that was happening from newspapers, but most of it was word of mouth. And then there was this moment in time about 50 years ago where, well, it was longer than that, right? So in the 1940s and 50s, where there was very much this push outwards of information from a central source, right? And so before it was very much kind of broken up, word of mouth. You learn about things from your neighbors, but then there was like newspapers and televisions and radios that were pushing out from a central source, and there was this very generally we tried to make sure the information, the history of it, we tried to make information valid, reliable, and it was actually good information. But in the last decade, 2 decades, I would say, is that there's been this very shift towards kind of almost back to the way it used to be. But there is this more of the word of mouth. But there is the distribution model is happened where there's individual people can have speak to a lot of people, and it's very different in terms of how we understand the world, um, and in terms of how things used to happen. So what has happened is that the institutions that we have haven't really caught up to what the world actually is right now, right? So the institutions still reward a lot of reliability. They're sort of, you know, the stodgy old men stuff is true. It does exist where there's like people that the cabal, right? Like I mean, it's not like people drinking blood in a corner kind of thing, like that is imagined or people sort of want to say. But there is a group of individuals that sort of control things. But this is very much changing today, and it's unsettling to some people because the information that is being spread sometimes is not necessarily valid and reliable. It can be very dicey. And the other thing that's really interesting is that the institutions have not caught up with rewarding this type of information. And now you'll see that I think some of the most successful people today have figured this out, and that's the reason why we have a lot of things that are going on in politics and business and stuff like that, is because they figured out these distribution models. But some of the more important of the players in our world, such as education, such as religion, you know, um, very, the organized, well-established stuff has not really caught up to it and doesn't really kind of get it. There's some people that are getting it, but, it's just very much this idea that um, the distribution of information can come from many different sources, and we have yet to recognize the value of that. And it's no longer this, central actor distributing in valid and reliable information. It's very decentralized at this moment. And now there's a thing that's happened in the last few years that is even more important and more interesting, is that machine learning is really starting to take off. This has been going on for decades, but we're starting to see it have impacts, right? Isn't that like machine learning? There's models been around for decades and decades, since the 1940s, where we really were actively thinking about this. Um, since the Enigma machine, basically, where we're cracking the code for World War II, but it's getting better and better and better based on just processing of information. This information is becoming more digitalized. Our world is coming from more analog to more digital in all respects, in all aspects of it. And we have to recognize that. But a lot of people don't recognize that. And they're very, very afraid. What you'll notice is that um, a lot of people that have sort of grown up in the different world, including myself, right? Like this is all new to me. Um, I was afraid for a long time to sort of speak out, be on social media in this very active way. But there's been a push where I think people have noticed that the algorithms that drive the distribution channels are very human in that they are alerting people on negative stuff, right? We pay attention to that. And so this sort of tribal stuff from, 100 years, a couple hundred years ago is still very much part of how we pay attention to things. But I would like to change that. I've always sort of imagined myself as thinking about, okay, you know, if we can, if there was a different way and it would be really slow, right? Because it's not going to be attractive at the beginning and probably for a long time because positive, sort of knowledgeable, simple living, or just being a normal human being is not really all that exciting. And I recognize that for a long time. But what I also recognize is that there is this very much this need for this. That if you look at most of the information and most of the stuff that's out there, it's sort of this, you know, uh, it's almost like a drug. And I get suckered for it too, the sort of short things, or very, clickbaity things. It's harder and harder to watch a movie now for me. um, this kind of stuff or have a long time conversation is more and more difficult. But I think that there is a need for, um, almost just like normal dad life stuff or normal, parent or, just normal life stuff where, um, people want to hear that they are normal this nonsense. It's not like, um, all of the stuff that gets a lot of traction is just like off the rocker in my view. And you have to play a little bit of that game, but at the same time, you have to recognize that yeah, you have to be somewhat truthful and reliable. You also have to. I I love more on the positive side, but also like just being there, right? Like having you hear all of my flaws, all of my weaknesses, all that kind of stuff. I think it's very, very positive to hear this, where you're just kind of laying it out there. Because we tend not to do that, and it's awkward and weird. I don't even like doing this in public, right? But because I'm doing this often in a car, particularly with podcasts and things like that, that it's easier for me to do it because I can kind of be my thoughtful self. And I think by doing this, um, I think it's important because we just need more like I the non. I guess I don't want to offend anybody, but the non just like you know sensational kind of like clickbaity kind of or just like really biased in either direction, left or right, or even centrist, right? Like, um, you know, there's just a need for in the middle, kind of normal dude, kind of screwed up, but trying to make things happen. Guy or girl, somebody that is, you know, a solid seven. Years ago, I kind of had this, belief, and I still believe in it today, that a solid 7 is better. If you think about like optimization, if you optimize in any particular trait or feature and you're like a 10 all around, or on one thing, that means you're pulling away from other things. I mean, it's just kind of an optimization thing. I think I told my wife this many years ago. I think she was kind of deeply offended, but it's just because you don't want to optimize. I'm a nerdy engineer type. You don't want to optimize on if you've got multiple objectives and multiple things, multiple criteria. If you optimize on one particular criteria, everything is just out and goofy on others. So you want to optimize and be like a perfect 7 on everything, right? Like be in the middle, because that is often the best way to sort of handle life, where there's there's just a middle ground, and that's it. So hopefully you like what I'm talking about and you stick with what I'm saying. All right, take care. Have a wonderful day.